I'd never say I'm a die-hard WWE fan. I have always got a lot of enjoyment out of the games, and I have really fond memories of playing SmackDown on the original PlayStation. I mostly stuck to the early game releases up until 2K16, and I just lost all interest. It was mostly due to the controls feeling like they got more and more confusing with each release, to try and deliver a more realistic wrestling experience. And playing on a console from the comfort of my sofa, I pretty much just want to slam as many people into the mat as possible. I'm not after a totally realistic experience. Part of the reason I came back for this game, other than the morbid curiosity of it, was the fact it had been announced that the controls had been completely changed. It's not an outright streamlined experience to the point of being as simple as the original SmackDown games, but it certainly takes a step back from what it was. I think the only real criticism I have is with the counter and reversal system. I think that needs a little work, but I think the changes they've made are a good building block to refine gameplay in the future games. The gameplay is stripped back enough that it's removed all of the overblown complication, but still retains enough skill to make it challenging. The changed controls are definitely the best thing for me, and providing a tutorial is definitely something that would help new players as well as returning ones. I have to hold my hands up and say I didn't play 2K20. I mean, it looked amazing. So it's not fair of me to compare this game to that game, especially in relation to bugs and glitches. However, is this a seamless experience without any sort of glitch? No, that's not how modern gaming works. There's always something. Collision detection isn't great. There's been a few interesting moments where gravity on the outside of the ring has gone haywire, and there's a bit of clipping here and there. Or here and hair, I should probably say. Hair still looks freakishly odd, especially long hair. I'm quite convinced that most of the female wrestlers are Medusa, with her head full of snakes, with the way it all seems to move around with a mind of its own. Is this a disaster? No, of course not. Not a perfect game by any means, but nowhere near the disaster of the last game on release. I'd say some of the wrestlers don't look great. I think I had a match against The Miz at one point and thought, that just looks nothing like him. But for the most part, nothing looks terrible, other than the hair. I was really impressed by all the entrances. I thought even the worst looking wrestlers in the game looked impressive in their entrances. My biggest bugbear is I've had more than one game crash, and there are moments where there seems to be slow loading times, especially in the creation suites. It takes forever to load things in when creating a wrestler. However, speaking of the creation options, I've probably spent more time creating my own wrestlers than I have actually wrestling. Pretty crazy, and it's not for everyone, but there are some freakishly detailed options. I didn't know I wanted the option to change the materials of belts, but here we are. WWE games have always had a crazy number of things you can create and customise. And oddly, the only thing I want to create is a faction, and I can't. I can create a tag team for two wrestlers of the same gender, but that's about it. Instead, we got My Faction mode, which, I mean, it's a pointless mode. Let's be honest, it's the microtransaction section of the game. It's essentially a card collection game, which, to be frank, WWE Supercard already exists on phones. All this adds is the option to wrestle the match instead of it being based off a number ranking. I suppose the microtransactions had to be added somehow. As far as modes in the game go, that's probably the biggest letdown. The standout mode for me, however, is definitely the Showcase mode, centred around Rey Mysterio's career. While the Showcase mode is nothing new in these games, it has got a certain level of polish. It also adds insight into Rey Mysterio with him discussing the matches ahead of play, but also during, due to clips from the matches being rather seamlessly inserted into the match. The My Rise mode, which has the most ridiculous writing in a game I've ever seen, that at times plays out like fanfiction, does seem to have a lot of replayability due to numerous options for your rise to stardom, and I could see myself being caught up in the different career paths for my custom creations for hours. It's just unfortunate that lacks any final care due to some bad voice acting, character models that just stand around awkwardly until you interact with them, and bad audio lip sync during anything outside of cutscenes. As previously noted, creating custom wrestlers has somehow become my favourite thing to do, and I can't help but think I've missed the whole point of what I'm supposed to be doing in this game. Is this the best game I've ever played? No, I'd say it's not even the best sports game I've ever played. But I have had a good time with this game, and that's the important thing. Sometimes after a long day at work I just want to waste an hour and do something mindless that isn't too intensive, and that's what this is to me. Something enjoyable to pick up for an hour and then easy to walk away from. But that's what most sports games are to me, so I wouldn't take that as a bad thing. More importantly, I think this is something of a fresh start for the WWE 2K series. And that's something that was obviously needed after the disaster of the last release. The developer visual concepts have really taken on feedback, and I think this is a good start for future games to be built up from. If nothing else, this is a positive example of what taking a little bit more time of development can achieve, especially when it comes to the punishingly yearly release schedule. The only thing this extended development time seems to have had a negative impact on is the roster. I'm not a big WWE fan. I couldn't tell you who half of the people in the roster are, but even I know some of the wrestlers featured in this game have either been let go or moved on and aren't in the WWE now. With all that being said, if they continue to develop these positive changes they've made with this WWE game, then I'd definitely say I'd be a returning player again. And I think other people would be too. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate the like, and if you've been playing the game, drop me a comment to let me know what you thought, and I'll be back soon with another video.